The evening sun cast a warm glow over the neighborhood, neat lawns and white fences lined up like a picture-perfect postcard. But behind the polished smiles and tidy hedges, everyone knew the truth. The HOA ruled here, and it was run by one woman, Karen Hastings. Karen wasn't just on the HOA. She was the HOA. Every fine, every threatening letter, every patrol with her clipboard had her name written all over it. She thrived on control, and she'd made me a target more than once. But this time, she had picked the wrong fight. I was throwing the biggest backyard party this neighborhood had ever seen. It started as a simple plan for my sister's engagement, a relaxed celebration with family and friends. But it quickly grew. Fairy lights, a dance floor, a DJ, even a BBQ food truck. Nearly 50 people were coming. It would be loud, it would be fun, and Karen was going to hate it. By late afternoon, my yard looked magical. Lights glowed, the smell of barbecue drifted through the air, and music hummed softly from the speakers. A few neighbors passed by, watching with thinly veiled curiosity. I could almost hear their whispers, greater than, "Isn't he pushing his luck with the HOA?" Maybe I was. But this night wasn't about Karen. It was about my sister, my family, and freedom in our own homes. I leaned on the deck rail, proud of what I'd built. For once, I felt in control. Then I saw her, marching down the street, clipboard in hand, lips tight with fury. Karen Hastings, and from her expression, I knew she already planned to shut my party down. Karen Hastings was like a storm cloud in human form. Even from half a block away, her jaw was clenched, her steps sharp, her clipboard hugged to her chest like armor. Neighbors watering lawns or walking dogs quickly slipped inside. Curtains twitched, doors closed. That was Karen's effect: fear, annoyance, and relief that her anger wasn't aimed at them. I sighed, set my glass down, and muttered, "Showtime." She stopped at the edge of my driveway, scribbling before even looking at me. "Evening, Karen," I called cheerfully. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" Her head snapped up. "Don't you even in me? What's going on here?" I gestured to the tables, lights, and food truck. Family celebration. My sister got engaged. Her smile was tight, dangerous. "A party? Do you have HOA authorization?" I laughed. "Karen, this is my house, my yard. I don't need your permission." She tapped her clipboard. "Section 14, subsection C, requires approval for large gatherings." I leaned in. "I'm not canceling this party. Unless you're calling the cops over barbecue, let us enjoy ourselves." Her eyes widened. Before she could respond, Emily stepped outside, glowing with her ring on display. "Everything okay?" Emily asked. "Just fine," I said smoothly. "Karen was just congratulating you." Emily smiled. "Oh, thank you." Karen twitched. "Yes, congratulations," she muttered, then scribbled furiously. Emily went back inside, oblivious. Karen leaned closer. "This isn't over." Then she marched off, heels clicking like gunshots. I exhaled. She was gone, but not finished. The next morning, her warning arrived in my mailbox. A violation notice stamped in red. Unauthorized event. Potential disruption to neighborhood peace. I laughed bitterly. Peace. Karen had killed peace long ago. I crumpled the letter and tossed it away. If she thought paper scared me, she didn't know me. By afternoon, guests came early to help set up. Jake hauled coolers, my cousin brought supplies, the DJ tested his speakers. Music vibrated across the deck. Excitement filled the air. Neighbors peeked from blinds, some frowning, others secretly rooting for me. Kids on bikes stopped at the curb. I handed them sodas with a grin. As the sun dropped, lights flickered on. BBQ smoke drifted through the street. Laughter rose. For a moment, I felt untouchable, but I knew better. Karen never bluffed. If she said she'd be back, she meant it. And this time, she wouldn't come alone. The party had begun. The real fight with the HOA was just starting. The first guests had barely settled when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Hello," a sharp voice snapped back. "This is Karen Hastings from the HOA. Consider this your final warning. Shut it down now, or we'll escalate." I smirked. "Escalate? What are you going to do? Fine me for breathing too loudly?" There was silence for a moment. Then she hissed, "You'll regret this." The call cut off. I stared at my phone, heart pounding faster than I wanted to admit. She wasn't bluffing. Karen never called unless she thought she already had the upper hand. Jake, my best friend, noticed the look on my face. "That her?" "Yeah, she's plotting something." "Let her," Jake said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Tonight's about Emily. Don't let Karen ruin it." He was right, but easier said than done. By 8 p.m., the backyard was alive. Music pumping, people laughing, plates stacked high with food. My sister Emily was glowing, dancing with her fiancé under the lights. For once, I felt like things were going right. Then headlights swung across the street. A car pulled up, slow, deliberate, like it owned the road. Karen. Of course. She stepped out, not alone this time. 2 other board members followed, each carrying folders and cameras. They looked like an army preparing for war. Gasps spread among my guests. Conversations dropped to whispers. Karen strutted into the yard as though she had legal ownership of it. "This event is hereby shut down," she announced, voice carrying over the music. "You are in violation of HOA policy. Everyone here is subject to fines. The DJ killed the music." All eyes turned to me. I forced a smile. "Karen, you're not the police. You can't shut down a private party." One of the board members raised his phone, snapping photos of my guests. Another scribbled notes furiously. It felt less like a party and more like a crime scene. Emily stepped forward, visibly upset. "This is my engagement party. Can't you let us have one night?" Karen's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Rules are rules. And tonight, you'll learn what happens when they're broken." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some guests looked ready to leave. My stomach sank. This was exactly what Karen wanted. Humiliation. But before I could respond, another set of headlights appeared. A larger vehicle this time. Doors slammed. Heavy footsteps. And when I saw who stepped into the backyard, my jaw dropped. Karen's smirk vanished instantly. The entire yard went silent, because the person walking in wasn't just another neighbor. It was someone Karen couldn't bully, someone she'd never expected to see here tonight. The backyard was frozen. Guests stood in silence, plastic cups of soda and plates of food forgotten in their hands. The string lights above flickered softly, casting long shadows across the wooden deck. And then the unexpected guest stepped fully into the glow. Sheriff Daniels, the man who kept this entire county in check. Broad-shouldered, steady-eyed, and with a reputation for being fair but unforgiving, Daniels was the last person Karen ever wanted to see at one of her battles. He removed his hat, glanced around the crowd, then fixed his gaze directly on Karen. "What's going on here?" Karen stammered. For the first time in years, her voice cracked. "Oh, officer, this is an unauthorized gathering. A disturbance. They're violating HOA bylaws." Daniels raised an eyebrow. HOA bylaws. You dragged me out here for that? The two board members shifted nervously behind her, clutching their folders like shields. Karen regained her composure and pointed a finger at me. This man is hosting a disruptive, illegal party. Loud music, food trucks, too many vehicles on the street. Illegal? Daniels cut her off. Ma'am, last I checked, it isn't against the law to celebrate an engagement in your own backyard. A ripple of laughter ran through my guests. I saw Karen's face flush crimson. She snapped back, louder this time. We have rules in this neighborhood. Rules he's breaking. As HOA president, I have authority to shut this down. Daniel stepped closer, his shadow towering over her. Let's get one thing straight. You don't have the authority to shut anything down. This is his property. Unless you've got proof of a law being broken, you're wasting everyone's time. Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her board members glanced at each other, unsure whether to stay or flee. That's when Daniels turned to me. Son, congratulations on your sister's engagement. You folks enjoy yourselves tonight. I'll make sure no one else bothers you. The relief that washed over me was almost overwhelming. Guests cheered, Emily clapped her hands together, and the DJ, bless him, cranked the music back up. Karen, though, wasn't finished. She yanked Daniels aside, whispering furiously. I caught fragments. Noise complaints. Fines. Residents upset. Daniels shook his head. Noise complaints? It's barely 9 o'clock. And if anyone was upset, they'd call me, not you. The look on Karen's face was priceless. Her power was crumbling, right there in front of the entire neighborhood. But then, something darker flickered in her eyes. She wasn't giving up. She was recalculating. She turned back to me, forcing a thin smile. Enjoy your little party. But remember, the HOA doesn't forget. This won't end here. And with that, she spun on her heel, her board members scrambling to follow. The three of them disappeared into the night, leaving behind only the sour taste. Even Sheriff Daniels stayed for a plate of ribs, shaking hands with Emily's fiancé and posing for photos with my nephews. But inside, I couldn't shake Karen's final words. The HOA doesn't forget. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. The very next morning, proof landed on my doorstep. Another letter, this time thicker, heavier. HOA letterhead stamped across the envelope in bold. I tore it open and scanned the words. Greater than official notice of violation. Multiple complaints have been filed regarding your unauthorized event. You are hereby fined $1,500 for disruption, excessive noise, and traffic obstruction. Payment due within 14 days. Failure to comply will result in further action, including legal proceedings. I laughed out loud. Complaints? From who? Half the neighborhood had been at the party. Jake walked in just as I finished reading. Let me guess, he said, eyeing the paper. Karen's next move? I handed it to him. His jaw tightened. She's really going for blood. Emily overheard us from the kitchen. This is insane. That party was beautiful. Everyone had fun. How can they even fine you for that? Because Karen doesn't care about fun, I muttered. She cares about control. I knew then that ignoring her wouldn't work. She wasn't going to stop, not after being humiliated in front of Sheriff Daniels. This fine wasn't about money. It was about revenge. And she was just getting started. That afternoon, I spotted her outside again, clipboard in hand, knocking on doors, chatting with neighbors in hushed tones. A few shook their heads. Others nodded reluctantly. Whatever story she was spreading, she was rallying support. The war had officially begun. I realized something important then. If I wanted to win, I couldn't just defend myself. I had to fight back, expose her, prove that she wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was abusing it. And deep down, I knew one thing for certain. Karen Hastings had no idea what she had just started. Because I wasn't about to back down. Not this time, not ever. The official fine notice sat on my kitchen table like a bomb waiting to go off. $1,500. I could pay it, sure. But that wasn't the point. If I gave in once, Karen would own me forever. Jake paced the room, holding the letter like it was toxic. You can't pay this. I won't, I said firmly. This isn't about rules anymore. She's making it personal. Emily leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She's obsessed. She's been like this for years, but now she's targeting you. And that, I said, snatching the letter back, is her mistake. For the next few days, things escalated fast. Karen started with the neighbors. She went door to door, telling anyone who would listen that my party had disturbed the peace. She claimed guests, blocked driveways, music rattled windows, trash littered the street. None of it was true, but she delivered her lies with the confidence of a seasoned politician. Some neighbors avoided me. Others whispered, "I'm with you. Don't worry." The divide was clear. Half the street feared her, the other half resented her. And then came the letters. Every morning, a new violation notice appeared in my mailbox. Grass too long. Improper storage of trash cans. Unapproved lighting fixtures in the backyard. It was laughable. She was throwing the book at me, one petty accusation at a time. Jake joked, "Next she'll fine you for breathing too loudly." But I wasn't laughing, because the fines were piling up, and the board, Karen's loyal soldiers, backed her every step of the way. By Friday night, I was done playing defense. Jake and I sat on the deck, a pile of letters spread between us. "She's building a case," he said grimly. "If you don't push back, she'll drag you to court." "Good," I replied, "because court is where I'll bury her." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You've got something in mind?" I nodded slowly. "Remember the security cameras I installed last year?" He grinned. "Oh, this is going to be fun." The next morning, I printed photos straight from my cameras. Wide shots of the street, dozens of guests smiling, cars neatly parked, no driveways blocked, no trash on the ground. Evidence, hard proof Karen was lying. But that wasn't all. At 9:43 p.m., the night of the party, my cameras had caught Karen herself, standing at the corner of my yard, waving at cars, deliberately guiding them to park crooked across the curb. She created the very traffic obstruction she later blamed on me. When I showed Emily, she gasped. "She set you up." "Oh, I know," I said, sliding the photos into a folder. "And tomorrow, everyone else will know too." Sunday morning, the HOA held their monthly meeting. Normally, it was a boring affair. 30 minutes of budgets, landscaping complaints, and endless talk about the color of mailboxes. But this time, the room was packed. Neighbors crammed into folding chairs, murmuring anxiously. Some shot me sympathetic looks. Others avoided eye contact. At the front sat the board. 3 nervous men, and of course Karen, smug, confident, ready to strike. She tapped the microphone. "Order, please. We're here to discuss multiple violations committed by resident of Lot 14 regarding unauthorized events, noise disruptions, and other breaches of community standards. Her eyes locked on me like a predator spotting prey. We moved to enforce a fine of $1,500, with further penalties pending. Gasps rippled through the room. Some nodded, others whispered angrily. I stood, slowly, folder in hand. Before you vote on that, I'd like to present some evidence. Karen's smile faltered. You're not on the agenda. Too bad, I said, laying the photos on the table, because the truth is, I spread the pictures for everyone to see. Guests dancing peacefully, cars parked in order. No trash, no chaos, just a normal party. The room buzzed, people leaned in to see, a few chuckled. Then I dropped the final photo. Karen, waving her arms at cars, deliberately causing the obstruction she later blamed on me. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, laughter. Karen shot to her feet. That's out of context. Really, I said calmly, because the timestamp shows exactly when you did it. While my guests were inside, celebrating, the other board members shifted uncomfortably. One cleared his throat. Karen, is this true? She stammered. I was helping manage traffic. By causing it, a neighbor shouted from the back. We saw you that night. Dozens of eyes turned on her. The tide had shifted. I crossed my arms. So tell me, Karen, are these fines really about rules? Or about your personal vendetta against me? The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in years, Karen looked rattled. Her confidence cracked. She sputtered, shuffled papers, tried to regain control. But the whispers in the room told the story. Her iron grip on the neighborhood was slipping. Finally, one of the board members muttered, I think we need to table this motion until further review. The crowd clapped. Someone even shouted, about time. Karen's face burned red. She slammed her folder shut, eyes drilling holes through me. This isn't over, she hissed. I leaned closer, just enough so only she could hear. You're right. It's just beginning. That night, Jake and I sat on the deck again, beers in hand. The neighborhood was buzzing, not with music, but with gossip. Word of Karen's humiliation spread like wildfire. She's going to come back harder, Jake warned. Good, I replied, sipping slowly, because now the whole neighborhood is watching. And next time she tries something, I'll make sure everyone sees who she really is. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the stars. For once, I didn't feel cornered. I felt ready. Karen Hastings had declared war, but she had no idea the kind of fight she'd just picked. The fallout from the HOA meeting spread faster than I could have imagined. Within hours, whispers traveled through every corner of the neighborhood. Some residents congratulated me quietly, others smirked when Karen passed by, and a few even admitted they had always hoped someone would finally stand up to her. But victories like that don't come without consequences. Karen didn't vanish. She regrouped. The next few days were eerily quiet, and quiet in Karen's world was never a good sign. She wasn't storming onto my lawn, she wasn't yelling about bylaws, and no letters appeared in my mailbox. That silence gnawed at me more than her shouting ever had. I could feel it. She was planning something bigger. The first sign came late one evening. I was pulling into my driveway when I noticed a car idling across the street. Its headlights were off, but I could see the faint glow of a phone screen inside. When I stepped out of my truck, the car pulled away slowly, deliberately. I told myself it was nothing, just a neighbor, just coincidence. But then it happened again the next night. different car, same behavior. It didn't take long for the pattern to emerge. Karen wasn't just fighting me with fines anymore. She was watching, studying, waiting. By midweek, subtle shifts began to unfold. The landscaping crew that usually trimmed the communal hedges skipped my end of the street entirely. The recycling pickup accidentally left my bins behind. A delivery package was mysteriously misplaced before it reached my doorstep. Individually, they were inconveniences. Together, they felt like pressure points being tested. Karen's influence stretched further than I had realized. She had her fingers in every routine that touched our neighborhood, and now she was pulling strings, one by one. It wasn't about fines anymore. It was about control. I kept quiet. No angry calls, no accusations. Instead, I watched. I recorded. I documented every strange occurrence in a thick black notebook I kept on the kitchen counter. Dates, times, what happened, who was involved. Because one thing was certain. This wasn't random. This was a campaign. And the more I stayed silent, the bolder she became. Friday night sealed it. It was around 11 p.m. when I heard the sound of footsteps outside my house. Not just passing by, lingering. I peered through the blinds and saw 3 figures on a sidewalk across the street, standing in a tight cluster. 2 men, 1 woman. Even in the dim light, I recognized the woman's posture instantly. Arms folded, chin lifted, the stance of someone convinced she owned the ground she walked on. Karen. The 3 of them stood there for nearly 10 minutes, speaking in hushed voices and gesturing toward my yard. At one point, one of the men took out his phone and snapped a picture of my house. Then, just as calmly as they had appeared, they walked away into the night. My chest tightened with a cold realization. She wasn't just after me anymore. She was assembling allies. The atmosphere in the neighborhood shifted. The friendly waves from some neighbors grew stiff, cautious. Conversations ended when I walked by. Kids who once played tag in my yard now crossed the street without looking back. Karen was poisoning the well drip by drip, and the cruel genius of it was simple. She didn't need to convince everyone, just enough. Enough to isolate me, enough to make me look like the problem. The weekend was worse. A notice appeared on the community bulletin board accusing a resident of violating trash disposal laws. It didn't name me directly, but everyone knew who it pointed to. Later that day, an anonymous flyer appeared in a few mailboxes claiming my behavior threatened neighborhood safety. It was propaganda. Karen had turned the fight into a whisper campaign, and whispers are harder to fight than fines. At night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house, every car that slowed outside, every flicker of light across the blinds set me on edge. I started double-checking the locks, pacing the hallways, listening for something I couldn't name. The strange part, it wasn't fear exactly. It was pressure, a gnawing certainty that something was building, a storm just beyond the horizon. Karen had lost face at the HOA meeting. She wasn't going to forgive that. No, she was going to escalate. By Sunday evening, the tension was unbearable. I sat on the deck, staring at the quiet street, the shadows stretching long under the street lamps. Jake had warned me Karen wouldn't stop, and now I understood just how right he was. The silence wasn't peace. It was the pause before the next strike. And when it came, I knew it wouldn't be another petty fine or flyer. It would be something bigger, something that could break me. The week of silence had left me uneasy. But Saturday night, finally came, and with it, the second backyard party. I hadn't planned to host so soon, but after the stunt Karen pulled at the HOA meeting, I wasn't about to crawl back into my shell. No, I wanted her to know I wasn't scared. I was ready. The grill smoked, fairy lights glowed, music played low but steady. Friends gathered again, chatting, laughing, clinking bottles. For a moment, it almost felt normal. But normal never lasted long in this neighborhood. It started with a single shout from the street. "Turn it down." Heads turned. Guests exchanged awkward glances. And then, like clockwork, Karen appeared, marching through the side gate in her pressed blazer and sensible shoes, clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge of authority. The party stilled, as if someone had pressed pause. Karen's voice cut through the night. "This is an illegal gathering. You're disturbing the neighborhood. I warned you once. This time, there will be consequences." I stepped forward, keeping my voice calm, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Karen, we both know there's nothing in the bylaws about this. You don't get to invent rules." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some guests looked ready to pack up, others folded their arms, glaring at her intrusion. Karen smirked. "Oh, I don't need bylaws. I have the law, and the law is on my side tonight." She pulled out her phone and dialed. "Yes, send the unit now. Address is on file. Thank you." My stomach dropped, but I forced a steady expression. She wasn't bluffing. She had called the police. The next 15 minutes crawled by. Guests whispered nervously, checking their watches, considering leaving. But I told them to stay. "You'll want to see this," I said quietly. And then, red and blue lights flashed at the end of the street. 2 patrol cars rolled up, their presence immediately silencing the party. The officers stepped out, hands resting casually on their belts, eyes scanning the scene. Karen lit up like a Christmas tree. "Officers!" she cried, striding toward them as though she had personally summoned an army. "Thank goodness you are here. This resident is hosting disruptive, unpermitted gatherings. He's been warned, fined, and continues to defy community rules. I demand you shut this down immediately." She spoke with the righteousness of a prosecutor, jabbing a finger in my direction. The officers looked at me, then at the calm, orderly backyard. Music low, food on tables, guests chatting quietly, some shaking their heads in disbelief. One officer frowned. "Ma'am, this doesn't look disruptive." Karen's face twitched. "Of course it's disruptive. Ask anyone. He's disturbing the peace, violating city codes." "Which codes exactly?" the officer asked. Karen stammered. "Well, the HOA codes. That's enough." The officer's voice hardened. "Ma'am, HOA regulations aren't criminal law." The crowd chuckled. Karen's cheeks flushed crimson. But before she could recover, another car pulled up, a sleek black SUV, not a standard patrol vehicle. The doors opened, and out stepped Chief Raymond Alvarez, the police chief himself. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Even the officers straightened when they saw him. Guests whispered, jaws dropping. Karen, of course, mistook his presence as a victory. She hurried forward, practically tripping over herself. "Chief, oh, thank you for coming. Finally, someone with authority. You see, this resident refuses to follow the rules. He's disturbing everyone, and I demand immediate action." The chief raised an eyebrow, his deep voice steady. "And who exactly are you?" Karen blinked, caught off guard. I'm the HOA president, Karen Hastings. This entire neighborhood is under my responsibility. Chief Alvarez's eyes flicked past her to me, then to the backyard, then back at her. His expression didn't change. And you called this in as a police matter? Yes, she snapped, seizing the moment. This man is causing chaos. You can hear the noise, see the crowd. It's unlawful. The chief paused, then said dryly, "Funny. From what I see, it looks like a normal gathering of friends. No one blocking roads, no excessive noise, no crime." Karen sputtered. But, but the rules. He's breaking the rules. The chief's voice sharpened. Your HOA rules aren't the law, Mrs. Hastings. You wasted police resources dragging us here for something that isn't a crime. The crowd erupted in murmurs, some outright laughing. My chest swelled with relief and satisfaction. Karen froze, her eyes darting, searching for control she no longer had. I didn't mean—" The chief cut her off. "If you call us again for something like this, I'll personally fine you for filing false reports. Do I make myself clear?" Karen's face drained of color. "Yes, Chief," she muttered weakly. The chief turned to me. His demeanor softened. "Sir, you're not breaking any laws tonight. Carry on, enjoy your evening. Just keep the music reasonable." "Of course, Chief," I said, hiding the grin tugging at my lips. He gave a respectful nod, then addressed the crowd. "Everyone, enjoy your night. Don't let false alarms ruin it." The guests cheered, clapping and raising drinks in salute. Some even shouted, "Thank you, Chief." Karen, meanwhile, shrank into the background, trembling with humiliation. As the police cars pulled away, the chief gave her one last warning glare. She couldn't meet his eyes. The party roared back to life after that. Laughter louder, music brighter, spirits soaring. Karen had been crushed, and not just in private this time, in front of the entire neighborhood, by the very authority she tried to manipulate. I leaned against the deck rail, watching her retreat down the street like a defeated general limping from battle. Jake clapped me on the back, grinning ear to ear. "Man, that was beautiful. You couldn't have scripted it better." I smirked. "I didn't script it. She did, because that was the truth." Karen had orchestrated her own downfall. Her arrogance had summoned the one man she couldn't control, and he'd dismantled her in minutes. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. Karen Hastings didn't surrender. She would come back. And next time, she wouldn't just be humiliated, she'd be dangerous. The night the police chief shut Karen down became neighborhood legend. For weeks, people replayed it, whispering about the look on her face, the way her voice cracked when she realized she had no power. But humiliation wasn't enough for Karen Hastings. She vanished from sight, skipping meetings, keeping her blinds shut. But everyone knew it was just the calm before her next move. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, it arrived. A thick white envelope slid under my door. Notice of civil action. Hastings v's Lot 14 resident. Karen was suing me. Her claim: emotional distress, harassment, damages to her reputation, and willful disruption of HOA authority. The language was so overblown, it read like satire, but it was real. She had filed in small claims court, hoping to bleed me with legal fees, hoping to drag my name through the mud. For the first time, I felt the weight of exhaustion. It wasn't about fines, or neighbors, or even the HOA anymore. It was about Karen's obsession, and obsessions don't die easy, but neither did my resolve. The day of the hearing, the room was tense. A handful of neighbors slipped into the back rows, eager to witness the showdown. Karen strutted in like a queen reclaiming her throne, dressed in a sharp navy suit, her hair sprayed into perfect place. She smiled at me across the aisle, but her eyes burned with something darker, desperation, disguised as victory. When the judge entered, the case began. Karen launched into her performance immediately. She painted herself as the victim, her voice quivering with rehearsed emotion. "Your Honor, this man has terrorized me, mocked the HOA's rules, and endangered the harmony of our community. I have endured sleepless nights, ridicule from neighbors, and irreparable damage to my reputation." The judge listened, expression unreadable. Karen dabbed at imaginary tears with a tissue, glancing back at the audience for effect. Then it was my turn. I didn't give a speech. I simply slid a folder across the table to the judge. Inside were photos, videos, and timestamps, evidence of Karen's lies, evidence of her staging violations, evidence of her calling false reports. But the last page was the real hammer, a signed statement from Chief Raymond Alvarez himself. The gathering in question involved no criminal activity or public disturbance. Mrs. Hastings misrepresented facts to law enforcement and attempted to misuse police resources. The courtroom fell silent as the judge read it. Karen's face blanched. When the judge finally spoke, her words cut sharper than any gavel. "Mrs. Hastings, not only is your claim without merit, but it borders on abuse of process. You have wasted the court's time." Case dismissed. Karen shot up. "But, Your Honor, enough." The judge's tone silenced the room. "Any further attempts like this, and I'll consider sanctions against you personally." The gavel came down. Karen's empire cracked in a single strike. The neighborhood's response was immediate. By the end of the week, a petition circulated calling for her removal as HOA president. For years, people had been afraid of her, but now, with her lies exposed and her lawsuit thrown out, they weren't afraid anymore. At the next meeting, she walked in with her usual clipboard. But this time, no one clapped, no one deferred. Instead, one of the board members stood and read the petition aloud. Effective immediately, Karen Hastings is removed from her position as president. The room erupted in cheers. Karen stood frozen, lips parted in shock as her power slipped through her fingers. For the first time, she wasn't the one controlling the neighborhood. She was the one being escorted out. That night, as I sat on my deck, the laughter of children echoing down the street, Jake raised a glass beside me. "You did it," he said. I shook my head. "No, she did it to herself. I just held up the mirror, and with that, the war was over. The HOA was no longer her weapon." The neighborhood finally breathed free. As for Karen Hastings, she had crossed the line one too many times, and in the end, the only person she destroyed was herself.